The dating market is broken. Marriage rates are down. There's a loneliness epidemic. And the population graphs of some of the world's most influential countries are about to nosedive off of a cliff. Men are bombarded online with troglodyte red pill influencer content that tells them stuff like this.
Women don't respect men with no hose.
If you're in a serious relationship with a girl, she should not have an Instagram. That's cheating. Who gives a fuck about a woman's orgasm? It's useless.
Whilst women find themselves absorbing TikTok brain rot dating advice.
Basically gold digging. Always go 15 to 25 years older. It's always going to get your bills paid.
Only cry and use emotion when it is to your advantage to get what you want.
And you just want somebody to pay them bills, pay that car note off. You may have to date someone who's already married or taken to get your money.
And the applications that have allegedly been designed to help you find the love of your life have really been built to keep you lonely and swiping.
Swiper, no swiping!
They hack into your brain chemistry and utilize your dopamine system and randomize rewards to turn you into an addict. So how do we get here and how do we fix it? Maybe you recognize this pattern of behavior. You download a dating app. You spend a little bit of time writing a profile, curating the best photos of yourself so that you look fun, adventurous, someone that other people would want to hang around with. Once you've created your profile, you spend an evening swiping away on the app. Maybe you get a few matches, a few little dopamine hits. You start chatting to people on there and quickly find out that they're not really a good match for you. Maybe you're one of the unfortunate men who gets almost no matches on these apps. And when you occasionally do, it turns out to be a bot. Or perhaps you're a woman who gets an enormous number of matches only to be bombarded with horrendous text messages from thirsty men. Either way, you feel dejected, maybe even a little bit hopeless. You decide to uninstall the app. The app asks, do you want to delete your profile? And you say no, just in case. But you remove the app from your phone. A few days or a week pass by and you try and organize to do something with your friends. But they're all busy. Maybe they've got something booked in with their partner, or they're taking the kids out, or they have plans already. Either way, they can't fit you in. You sit at home and a wave of loneliness overtakes you. And you find yourself searching for the app once again on the App Store. You download it and you begin swiping again. A few more matches, a few more little bursts of dopamine, followed by the exact same cycle of disappointment. Maybe you're one of the luckier ones who gets an enormous number of matches. So many suitors that you don't know what to do with them. But no matter how many dates you go on, you always invariably find yourself back on the app, wondering if there isn't a better shiny object for you to go after. This is all by design. You didn't think Tinder, Bumble, or Hinge was actually trying to help you find the love of your life, did you? The more people in happy relationships, the less money they earn. So they designed their app with an express purpose: to keep you, the consumer, lonely and addicted to the app. So how have they done this? By ripping open the back door on your brain and hooking the app straight into your dopamine system. Dopamine is a key neurotransmitter in the human brain. The dopamine system evolved in order to help us survive. It pushes us to seek novelty in the hopes that that novelty will somehow increase our chances of survival. In the ancient past, this might have meant exploring that valley next to yours and finding new food sources, or approaching that other tribe and creating alliances that would help you fight off enemies. Dopamine is what tricks us into thinking that that new job or car or girl is going to improve our lives drastically. Unfortunately, the reality is, as soon as the shine fades, we need a new novel thing to run after. But these apps don't just use novelty to get you addicted. They also use randomized rewards. In order to really understand the power of randomized rewards, we need to talk about a behavioral psychologist called B.F. Skinner. Skinner ran a series of experiments in the early 1900s that looked at the behavior of mammals in certain situations. He designed something he called the operant conditioning box, which is now colloquially referred to as a Skinner box. A Skinner box essentially consisted of a box container that would house a pigeon or a rat or another small mammal. It would have some lights that could turn on and off. It would have a lever or button that the animal could press, and it would have a dispenser that would allow food pellets to be released. Some more Machiavellian versions of the box also included an electrified floor to test how negative feedback would affect behavior. Now, what does this Skinner box have to do with dating apps? Well, I'm going to get there, don't worry, 1 second. So in order to understand how randomized rewards in applications turn us into addicts, we have to look at certain experiments that Skinner did with his pigeons in these boxes. One such example included a pigeon that was given access to a lever, and once they pecked the lever a certain number of times, a food pellet would be released. There were multiple different conditions for this experiment. One in which no matter how many times the pigeon pressed the lever, they wouldn't receive a reward. There was a condition where after a certain number of lever pushes, the pigeon would receive a reward. For example, 4 lever pushes meant a food pellet. And in the final version, the number of lever pushes required in order to get a food pellet was hooked up to a random number generator, so that each time would be a completely different number of lever presses required in order for the pigeon to get the reward. Now, as you might expect, the pigeon that pressed the lever hundreds of times and received no reward eventually got bored of pressing it and stopped interacting with it. Very much like the people that possibly use dating apps and get no matches. Eventually, they're going to get sick of it and not use the application anymore. Then you had pigeons that needed to press the lever a certain number of times, for example, 4, to get their reward. They would push it 4 times and they would get a food pellet. They would do it again and get another food pellet. But after a short period of time, the pigeons would figure out exactly how the mechanism worked. They knew they only needed to push it 4 times and then they would receive a food pellet. These pigeons then stopped pressing the lever unless they wanted to eat. But in the final condition, where each attempt at getting a food pellet required a random number of lever pushes, the pigeons went absolutely bananas. They would peck at the lever over and over and over and over and over, no matter how many times it took for the pellet of food to be released. And it is exactly this randomized rewarding system that drives behavioral addiction, like the gambling addict who doesn't know when they are going to get their monetary reward.
It's a good example of how you can move from the pigeon to the human case, because one of the schedules which is very effective with rats or pigeons is what we call the variable ratio schedule, and that is at the heart of all gambling devices and has the same effect. The pigeon can become a pathological gambler just as a person can. Now, the fact that we found that out with pigeons and could prove it by removing and changing the schedule makes it easy for us to interpret the case with the human subject.
These randomized rewards massively drove up the spikes of dopamine that the animals received. You see, dopamine spikes in response to novel stimuli, and it drives us to seek things like food and shelter and sex. But it's also intimately tied to the learning architecture of our brains. Dopamine will spike in response to unexpected rewards or stimuli, but once we've figured out the pattern of how those things work, the dopamine spikes will slowly fade. Once we understand how certain actions result in rewards, we stop getting dopamine spikes altogether. We've now learned the process, and we know that if we need that reward, we simply need to enact that particular set of behaviors. But when the rewards are randomized, the dopamine system never powers down. Because every reward is to an extent unexpected, we continue to get hits of dopamine every time the reward appears. It is this hijacking of the dopamine system that results in behavioral addiction. The gambler who doesn't know when the slot machine is going to pay out has to sit there and press the lever over and over and over again. It is the randomized reward of finding good content on YouTube or TikTok that makes those platforms so addictive as well. And the randomized reward of matching with someone on a dating app is what drives you to keep swiping and swiping and swiping.
Swipe or no swiping.
Now, we're not going to go too deep into the science of addiction in this video, but it might also be worth mentioning here that in the case of addiction, often the user has to utilize their drug of choice in order to return their emotional state to baseline. That is, the alcoholic has to consume alcohol to feel normal. In the case of the dating app, it's been designed to help you bring yourself back to normal when you're hit with a certain type of negative emotion, i.e. loneliness. As long as you use swiping as a way to abate your own loneliness at certain occasions, then you are using it to return yourself to an emotional baseline. There have been thousands of follow-up experiments with Skinner boxes, all sorts of variations, including the addition of lights and sounds and special noises in an attempt to see if these drove up dopamine even more. The answer is they do. Now let's consider the applications. They're meant to help you find a partner, a fundamental human drive, but they're set up like slot machines. You swipe and swipe and swipe in the hopes of finding a match. That randomized reward occasionally comes, driving you to repeat the behavior again. Once you match, the probability of you being a good fit is yet again another roll of the dice. And once you are out dating, ping, your personal Skinner box lights up to let you know that your next reward is ready, pulling you right back into that cycle of swiping and pursuing, but never actually getting what you want. Now we add another level of complexity to the situation. As dating has evolved with the internet, so too has dating advice. Where in the past you may have got most of your dating advice from a friend or family member who knew you well, wanted the best for you, and also knew that you could be a bit of a dick sometimes. Nowadays, a lot of us are getting our dating advice from the internet. The problem with that is the content aimed at giving men and women advice on dating is driven by the exact same dopamine arms race that's driving all content online, which means more rage bait, more extreme titles, more ridiculous ideas being pushed in an attempt to garner more attention, which results in brain rot like this.
Go buy a pink shirt.
You're never going to find a man that he's truly going to fall in love with you. Men will trick you, lie to you, tell you everything you want to hear. I love you, all of that to get what they want. Okay? And they have no remorse.
Why do you never chase a woman? Because chasing a woman is feminine energy.
I will only date a guy with little to no Instagram presence, okay?
For me is when a man keeps a girl interested by giving her small amounts of attention without committing to anything serious. I'm going to show you what text you should send a girl, the girl you like, to perform this tactic.
Doesn't text, if he doesn't call, if he doesn't initiate any date, you are going to do nothing. And this is not.
So what's the solution? Well, I think there are two things we need to start doing. Number one, we need to get off of these dating apps. Unless someone creates one that is a completely free model and therefore they cannot profit in any way from our continued singleness, we shouldn't be using the app. So what do we do instead? We join in real life meetups, hangouts, language exchanges, run clubs, martial arts groups, sports, whatever it is you need to do to go and meet people in real life, preferably over passions that you already have so that you have shared interests with the people that you're talking to. And number two, we seriously need to start curating our digital diets more. The amount of information and knowledge we're able to absorb from content apps has reached an all-time high. And people are starting to realize that what you put in your digital diet has as much of an effect on your mind as what you put in your physical diet does on your body. So we need to start curating our digital diets more consciously. If you found this content interesting, please consider sharing it, like and comment below in order to bump it up in the algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't. If you want to know more about the science of dopamine and how it affects our behavior and habits, then you can hit the link below and sign up for my free ebook on the topic. You'll also enter my email list, and so you'll get alerted when my full-length book, The Dopamine Dilemma, is finished and ready. Peace out.